From there, it goes on and on and on. And like you said, in the night, there's a lot of them that were kind of the rip-offs when you got into, over like say the 80s and 90s had a lot of them. But when CG came around, it just exploded. And I'm looking now at a ton of just different shark horror movies on my monitor right now. It's endless, but like all of them, they wouldn't make them if they couldn't sell them. And all of these are like, and I'm looking at here, from sharktopus to two-headed shark
yeah,
to ice sharks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Obviously the Meg is in there, all the Sharknado movies. Yeah, let's not forget about Lake Placid, which actually spawned.
You know what? I forgot about that. I saw that in the theater. That was that's like a killer croc movie with Betty White, and that's actually a pretty enjoyable movie.
Yeah, and you could actually even throw like Anaconda in there, which I like Anaconda.
Yeah, these were all spawned from Jaws.
Yeah. And actually, it's like, so let's talk about some of the more modern spin-offs. Obviously the low-hanging fruit here is Sharknado.
Oh, now speaking of low-hanging fruit, one more Jaws ripoff to mention is Claws. Which is 1977. They're not even trying to be. No, this is what's hilarious. It was released as Grizzly 2, despite having no connection to the aforementioned movie, and this was made like 1 year after Grizzly,
which is awesome. So now, like a fast forward, like there's some of these from the 90s that were clear ripoffs too. But jumping into more modern stuff, like I said, Lake Placid. Lake Placid had a whole bunch of movies, and they're actually kind of legit. Anaconda had a bunch, but Sharknado was kind of the one that I feel that like there was just a bunch of ripoffs, and then Sharknado just was like adding fuel to the fire. So
yeah.
Realistically, Sharknado was the first one that made it tongue in cheek. Like they weren't. It was not serious. It was like, how can you take it serious when a tornado lifts up a bunch of great white sharks and sprays them all over Los Angeles? We're not taking it seriously, and yet it was successful enough to spawn 4 or 5 sequels.
Now, before that, of course, with the evolution of shark horror, you've got a couple movies before it gets to Sharknado, because we've got after Jaws. Now, one of the biggest ones I think was Open Water, because the shark genre had the shark horror genre had kind of gone dormant for a while. Open Water came out in 2003. Now, Open Water and The Reef were both referred to as basically making the shark genre scary again, and without using any kinds of computer effects at all. So these were using all practical effects. Now, the cool story about Open Water, it was based off of a couple that was left after, like, there's basically like a scuba diving team that was out there like on a fishing trip, and they did a count that was wrong, and they left this couple there.
Yeah.
So the movie is based off a true story. Now, the movie was made for, I believe, like under $200,000, but it was referred to as kind of like the Blair Witch of shark movies, and because it was basically like this couple out in the water as the primary cast, and they're just stuck there. Now, the hook on this movie, of course, as you know, Blair Witch had that marketing gimmick, is there were real sharks around them. So you got to imagine, as an actor, you got to be scared out of your mind for the rest of that shoot.
Legitimate fear. Yeah, I remember that one because it was shot very indie style in the water, on open water, and I remember reading about it quite a bit. Yeah, and it was the Blair Witch of shark movies for sure, because it was serious too. It was not a tongue-in-cheek deal. It was very serious.
And then half of that movie, of course, the budget was spent on securing the shark trainers to keep those sharks from killing them. Now, basically, the reason they kept these sharks docile is they kept feeding them a lot of like fresh bloody tuna, so the sharks wouldn't come after them. But they did actually attract some sharks that were outside of the sharks that the shark wranglers controlled, because of the fresh blood from the tuna in the water. It started attracting outside sharks. So those trainers that weren't familiar with them had to be a little nervous, but those sharks came in. They called them the non-union sharks that came in from outside of the regular sharks they were wrangling. But you got to imagine as an actor being like, where are these sharks coming from? And you don't know how to train them. Like, what's going on? But that's probably like the main reason why a lot of the fear in that movie was probably real. So that's probably one of the main reasons why it worked so well.
I would not recommend an indie crew to go out and chum the waters and throw actors into the ocean and try to shoot.
How ballsy is that, though? Holy shit. I read something where they signed like a waiver too, so the sharks killed him. Like, well, you can't sue if a shark kills you because you're dead, but I guess like the family can't sue the shark wranglers.
That's just terrifying to me. And then there was a whole bunch afterwards that were kind of in that like there was The Shallows, right? That's the Blake Lively one we were talking about.
Yeah, where the shark like attacks her and kind of like the usually where sharks don't go into because
Yeah, and
there's
she's a surfer.
the level of water isn't very high, but this shark
Yeah,
goes in there and traps her. Yeah.
yeah, and she's a surfer that gets
Yeah.
trapped offshore
Yeah.
and gets caught in there. It's kind of like open water, but with a bit more of a budget because Blake Lively's not signing on to get into real shark infested waters. And there was a whole bunch around there too, like you said, a Deep Blue Sea was another one that was around then.
Yeah, now Deep Blue Sea actually predates open water.
And so then right around like the Sharknado time, but there was also, and I don't know the dates on all these too, but you started to get, and one of them like what Mega Shark versus Giant Octopus, which was which came out, was super interesting. Because I watched that one recently. It's totally low budget, but I don't know when that was dated because there was a pile of them that came out around there, like Mega Shark versus Giant Octopus, and there was Sharktopus, Mega Shark versus Crocosaurus, and there was just the verses in the middle. And I think they kind of went back to the early 2000s, even late 90s.
Yeah,
super low budget, but we're just capitalizing on all of this this stuff. But then, like we said. Sharknado was really the one that all of a sudden made it like I think probably got a bunch of people going, whoa, okay, we can take a tongue-in-cheek funny look at this, and sharks have crossed over into something. Because there was also the ever popular but not nearly as popular as Sharknado, two-headed shark and its sequels, three-headed shark, four-headed shark, and five-headed shark.
Yeah.
which Danny Trejo was in some I believe he was in Three-Headed Shark. So he came in he was not in on Two-Headed Shark, and he was not in Five-Headed Shark, but he was in there for Three-Headed Shark. It's just piles of them when it goes in there. But obviously, like I get the super indie ones that we were talking about, where it's like, hey, we can do a shark movie, like Raiders of the Lost Shark. The one I recently watched was clearly a super indie. But when you got guys like Corman and The Asylum pumping these out like multiple a year, clearly there's a market for them.
Absolutely. So that's what I thought was kind of interesting. So well, actually, to go back just briefly before that, so you got Deep Blue Sea, which comes out in 1999, uses computer effects and then becomes a blockbuster. Then you got Open Water, which scales it back, which comes out in 2003. And then about that time, when they were going for like the practical effects, and then about that time, since computer effects were becoming more useful and more open out there and more accessible and less expensive to do, then you started seeing like all those like Asylum type and Roger Corman type companies coming out with all these movies in about like roughly in the early 2000s. And then you see after that, then you see Sharknado hit the scene in 2013, and then that's where it really clicked. Now, which was weird to me because like you see all these movies come out that are all these like bizarre, shark movie titles, all these ridiculous ones. And then Sharknado comes out and it clicks with that, and it becomes a huge, like it becomes embedded in the public consciousness, and everybody loves it, and everybody's watching, everybody's talking about it. And you're wondering like, why is it Sharknado that made that happen and not all these other crazy shark titles before that? What was it about Sharknado? I think was it just the tornado? There was just like that. They upped the ante on the ridiculous factor that much that everybody's like, I got to see this, or
100%. And not to mention the I think the cast that they put together for it.
That's true, because everybody,
it was a full on. This is ridiculous. Like the thing about like say Two-Headed Shark or Mega Shark versus Croctopus or whatever, whatever they had. Sharknado was the first one that just doubled down on exactly what it was.
Yeah.
Right. Like it was ridiculous, and because it was such a blockbuster. I mean, all of a sudden, like you said, I mean, I think then everyone like opened up the ridiculousness of this. I'm just still looking at lists, like as I keep updating it. Lavalantula. It was the massive tarantula that came out of the lava. Jurassic Shark, of course, obviously, played really well. They're sand sharks, of course. These are sharks that go into the sand. They've somehow figured that out where they can go burrow themselves like a mole and attack people who are just lying on the beach, because if the water wasn't scary enough, we got to put the beach into play.
So what you're saying is that Sharknado really worked because everybody wanted to see Steve from 90210 again.
Well, I also think it's like the whole idea of like how many times can you do something? Like even like when you think about slasher movies, like Yeah, I mean, Friday the 13th couldn't take itself too seriously by the end. Neither could Nightmare on
No,
Elm Street.
yeah.
It's like when you get to too many of them, you have to kind of turn a corner and say, okay, look, we're doing this. We know we're all in on this together. Hey, audience, hey,
Yeah.
us, we're in on this together. And I mean, when you're trying to do Sharktopus, which has a classic classic scene with the shark
Yeah.
coming out of the water onto land. Like it's, I mean, when you're doing that, it's like you've fully gone over the deep end, right? Like
Yeah, sea-based reimagining of Frankenstein. Uh, only in this case, the doctor is a crazed scientist inventing killing machines, and the monster is half shark, half octopus.
Yeah.
These are like, well, let's go over some of our favorite titles, because these are some of my favorite, because they just keep getting more out there and more out there. It's great. I'm looking forward to seeing how crazy they can go with this. But here's some of my favorites. Ouija Shark, which is about a group of teenage girls that summon an ancient man-eating shark after messing with a spirit board that washes up on the beach. An occult specialist must enter the shark's realm to rid this world of the deadly spirit ghost once and for all. Makes sense. That could happen on the beach. Jersey Shore shark attacked, ghost shark, avalanche sharks, attack of the Jurassic shark.
Ghost shark. It's dead shark.
Zombie sharks, of course, Shark Exorcist, Santa Jaws, one of my favorites because the shark is wearing a Santa hat, and then also I believe our personal favorite, Sky Sharks,
which is Sky Sharks. Yeah, come on, sharks don't believe in the water or don't belong in the water; they belong in the sky.
And it was a successful crowdfunded movie about flying robot sharks piloted by zombie Nazis. I only wish they weren't robots sharks. They were actually alive, and they somehow found a way to get them to fly in the sky.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't have too many to add to this list, obviously. Like, I think you kind of nailed a lot of it, but Shark in Venice, Super Shark, Sharktopus versus Terracuda. Of course, Raiders of the Lost Shark, Jurassic Shark, Sand Shark, Snow Shark. There's snow sharks are a thing.
Okay.
Yeah, that's out there. Yeah, it's just endless. And I mean, anything that you've got. I mean, the funny thing is, like, you look at stuff like the Meg has legitimate, directors and actors and stuff like that. These are, and that's about Megalodon. It's just upping the ante on the shark.
Basically, after Sharknado, you're just seeing this like endless string. And I was like writing down some of the most like crazy ass shark titles, and they just go on forever. I started writing down like 10 of them or so, and then I went to a list where they showed them, and it just kept going on and on and on. I couldn't even keep up with it. Yeah. But then you go back to basically not as, I mean, it's got like plenty of cheesiness in the Meg, but it's more like an action movie meets like a Jaws like shark movie. Yeah. And then there's more like traditional kind of Hollywood blockbuster movie. It was a little bit cheesy, but not nearly as crazy as these like straight to video ones.
Oh yeah, but like Ben Wheatley was attached to Meg too, right?
But yeah, but the first Meg had a much higher budget than any of these like straight to video ones, and it made a shitload of money. Of course, everybody went to go see it for Jason Statham fighting that like massive shark, and it also launched like the concept of, they went bigger with it too, because shark, like we're gonna need a bigger boat. Well, this one they got a bigger shark, because a megalodon is a prehistoric shark that was around millions of years ago, but it was much larger. It got up to like 65 or 66 feet in length. So this is like just a massive, this is like you're taking on like a ship or something, as opposed to an actual fish. But so he's going after this prehistoric shark that's much bigger than a great white, like easily like twice the size of like probably the largest great white they'd ever find. And so the stakes are much higher in this. And of course it did really well. And now we're going to have, Ben Wheatley's, like you said, going to be doing the sequel, and it'll probably rake in a shitload of cash too. Yeah. Because internationally it's going to do really well as well too.
Yeah. So sort of to tie a little bow on this and bring it to a close, I don't see an end to shark horror.
No, not at all. It's going strong.
I think it's going strong. I think it's crazy, and I think there's piles of room for more low budget stuff. I mean, it's kind of like all they say when you talk to people who are buying movies and stuff. There's certain genres that they're just like, oh yeah, we'll pick that up, that sells, and I think shark horror is one of those. You probably like it doesn't have to be a shark. It can be whatever swamp-based, lake-based ocean creature you want. I mean, you just got to figure out how to make it work.
Yeah, like half of these knockoffs weren't even like actual shark movies. They just inspired other genres of of animals. Like a lot of times it's like crocodiles. Like you got the movie Crawl that came out, and that's so similar to that movie The Pool that we watched, because Crawl was like basically about like a flood that happened during Katrina, and this girl goes to like look after her dad and then gets stuck in the house with all these crocodiles coming in there. But that's like actually shit that could really happen too, or probably has.
Oh no, I mean it's all. I mean it's just when you look at the sort of like I said, to kind of tie it together here. If you're a filmmaker, one, there is something scary about what you can't see, and like so we're talking about oceans, lakes, rivers, dirt, swamps, whatever, like things like things that lurk are scary. And from a filmmaking perspective, what's cool about it is that you don't have to necessarily show them to create tension. Especially when you're in that survival side of it. And you know what, Jaws did it really well, like we talked about, not on purpose, but it ended up on accident. But the scenes where you can't see what's going on and you hear the infamous music are far scarier than the scenes where the shark is actually in it. And those are tactics that as a filmmaker you can definitely employ to create tension and
Hitchcock tactics. Like Spielberg said, he used when he was backed up against a wall, he used Hitchcock tactics to save the movie, and it ended up making that movie far more effective.
And it didn't require
minimalism worked in his favor.
And it didn't require big special effects or big CGI or big whatever. And that just means that as an indie filmmaker, I think a lot of this stuff is on the table, and there's stuff that you can look at. So it doesn't take too much to go on to Tubi, Amazon, or whatever, and start looking around for shark horror to get some ideas. But from sharks to alligators to the cross of shark alligators and stuff, there's a lot of options for filmmakers to go make something in this space, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's also inspiration for independent filmmakers. That Spielberg was actually forced to, after all the problems they had with Jaws and the shark not working, he was forced to rewrite the movie without a shark in it. So he had to be forced to so as a filmmaker, that's kind of good. Like, how does this movie work without like the monster or without like the hook that we're going for? Can you make it work as a movie on its own? More inspiration for indie filmmakers. Spielberg was almost fired roughly 20 times during the making of Jaws. And after the smoke cleared, he made a masterpiece that's still talked about to this day, and no movies have topped yet.
Yeah, there you go. And that's probably a pretty good place to end. So if you've got anything shark, alligator, swamp hiding in the shadows, don't hesitate. Go out there and make that movie, because we want to see it, because we're still going to continue our deep dive here. So yeah, anything else to add?
Yeah, I would say it remains to be seen whether any movie will be better than Jaws. But much like the Bigfoot genre, God bless them for their relentless pursuit.
Yeah, I mean, hey, keep them coming. Like I said, the deep dive continues. If we're here talking about these thousands of shark movies, there's definitely room for more. Let's keep trying to make the next one.
Worst case situation, you're going to make something like Ouija Shark or Raiders of the Lost Shark that everybody's going to want to drink beers and watch and party to. So it's like, that's sort of like a go-to kind of movie. If you make something so ridiculous, people are going to watch it just because of the title alone and because it's got a shark in it. So
it's a no-lose situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, that brings us to the close of this episode. If you made it this far, you were clearly either an indie filmmaker or fan, and we would love to have you on board and part of our community. So go to deadharvey.com, sign up for our e-newsletter, follow us on social media, or search for Dead Harvey wherever you listen to podcasts, and subscribe, because that would be great. So that's all I got for this week. Until next week.
It is as if God created the devil and gave him jaws.